Hello everyone, my name is Ali Agha and I'm the International Integration Officer at George Brown College. I welcome you all to this virtual postgraduate work permit information session. Today, I will introduce you to the International Integration team. Then I will talk about transitioning to work after graduation. We will go into detail and I will tell you the process to apply for the postgraduate work permit. And lastly, we will talk about social insurance number. Meet the team. So we have two full-time international student advisors. One of them is Carissa Hu, and the second one is Michelle Choi. They handle different portfolios depending on the academic departments. I will tell you about their portfolios at the end of my presentation. Then it's me, Ali Agha. I'm the International Integration Officer. We have Mariam Julazadeh. She's the International Student Programs Coordinator. And lastly, we have our Manager for International Student Services, Tenzing Kunga. As you can all see, that four of us have a designation in front of our names, which is called RISIA. RISIA stands for Regulated International Student Immigration Advisor. What this means is that we are legally allowed to provide immigration advice related to study and work permits for international students and their dependents. On the other hand, Mariam has a designation that says RCIC, which stands for Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant. Her license allows her to give immigration advice for different immigration areas. Transition to work after graduation. Once you complete all requirements to graduate, as long as you are an international student who is eligible to work off campus, you can continue to work 20 hours. Once you complete your program and you receive your final transcript and the proof of graduation, with those two documents, you can apply for the postgraduate work permit. Once you have applied for the postgraduate work permit, only then you can transition to full-time work under implied status. To be able to transition to full-time work under implied status, you need to meet certain other criteria as well, which I'm going to talk about later in my presentation. So just to elaborate on this slide, for students who are graduating this term, which is winter 2020, your last day of classes is April 17th. After that, you can still continue to work 20 hours as long as your study permit lists a condition that allows you to work off campus. Up until the day when you receive a proof of graduation or final transcript, please note that you can request the proof of graduation and the final transcript even now. I will give you the links and give you the process on how to apply later in my presentation. Once you receive either document, whichever comes first, at that point, you're no longer an international student and you need to stop working. After that, once you apply for the postgraduate work permit, you can again restart full-time work. If your postgraduate work permit application is refused, you must stop working. You can travel outside of Canada and return while your postgraduate work permit application is in process. But please make sure that you have a valid visa or an ETA to return to Canada. By valid visa, I mean it should be a visa sticker which is affixed in your passport. You would need that to be valid, or your ETA, which is linked to your passport. those need to be valid for you to fly back to Canada. If you do not apply for postgraduate work permit and you have received your graduated status, which means that you have received your proof of graduation or the final transcript from the college, and you still haven't applied for the postgraduate work permit, you are no longer authorized to work in Canada. So what is the postgraduate work permit program? Postgraduate work permit program helps students who have graduated from an eligible Canadian post-secondary institution to gain valuable Canadian experience. This Canadian experience may later on translate and help you to obtain your permanent residency within Canada. Please note that postgraduate work permit is an open work permit. As a principal applicant, you, an international student, do not need to have a job offer to apply for this work permit. However, if you have a spouse or a common law partner and you want to apply to extend their status in Canada as well, in that case, you would need to find a skilled job in National Occupation Qualification 0, A, or B. We will talk about National Occupation Classification and the requirements for spousal and common law partner work permit extension later in the slides. Please note that you can only obtain a postgraduate work permit once in your lifetime. It is not renewable. The only exception is the expiry of passport. Immigration will only issue you a postgraduate work permit up until the expiry date of your passport. So in case if you believe that you may be eligible for a longer period of work permit, but your passport is expiring soon, then we would advise you to renew your passport and then apply for the postgraduate work permit. Now let's talk about the length of the postgraduate work permit. The length of the postgraduate work permit will primarily depend on the length of your program. So if your program was between 8 months to 2 years, your postgraduate work permit will be of the same length as your program. So for example, if you finished a program that was 1 year from an eligible DLI, you may be able to receive a postgraduate work permit up to 1. If your program was 2 years or more, in that case, you may be eligible for a postgraduate work permit that is valid up to 3 years. Please note the length of the postgraduate work permit is up to the discretion of the immigration officer. Combining programs. International students may combine 2 programs to be eligible for a longer period of postgraduate work permit. This means that if you finish one program, which is minimum of 8 months in length from a DLI, and you complete the second program within 2 years from the same DLI or a DLI, and both programs are 1 year each, you may combine the length of both programs, 1 plus 1, and in that case, you may be eligible for a work permit that is up to 3 years. We would strongly advise students, as I mentioned before, that you only receive your postgraduate work permit once in your lifetime. So if you plan on doing 2 programs, please make sure that you apply for the postgraduate work permit after you finish both programs. So postgraduate work permit eligibility. You must have completed passed a post-secondary academic, vocational, or professional education program in Canada. This program must be completed from an eligible designated learning institution, DI, and you must have studied full-time throughout your program. The only exception to the full-time rule is that if you drop to part-time status just in your last semester, and the reason may be that you do not need a full course load to complete your program, in that case, you are still eligible to apply for a postgraduate work permit. So for example, if this is your last semester, but you were full-time throughout your program, except your last semester, and you're taking this semester as a part-time student because you do not need full-time course load to complete your program. In this case, you are still eligible to apply for a postgraduate work permit. However, for example, if you think this is your last semester, but then again, for some reason, you do not meet the requirements to graduate, and you come back to take another part-time semester, in that case, you are not eligible to apply for a postgraduate work permit. Once again, your program must be at least 8 months in length and leading to a degree, diploma, or a certificate. Also, you must not take unscheduled breaks or be on unauthorized leave from your studies. By unscheduled break, I mean, for example, if summer is a mandatory semester for you and you do not take classes, that may compromise your postgraduate work permit eligibility. However, let's say if summer is a scheduled break for you, meaning there's no classes and it's not mandatory for you to come to classes, in that case, you can take that semester off and still be able to apply for the postgraduate work permit. What do I mean by unauthorized leave? So in certain situations, students may apply to be on authorized leave, and the reasons for authorized leave can constitute medical emergency or family emergency. But please make sure in this case that you speak to your international student advisor and your academic department, and the college needs to approve your authorized leave. In that case, if you were put on authorized leave and it was your mandatory semester, then when you apply for the postgraduate work permit, you can always submit an explanation to the immigration officer and additional documents that prove that you were on authorized leave from the college. Lastly, please note that the approval depends on the college, and in most cases, there's no guarantee that the college will approve your authorized leave. Then, one of the eligibility criteria is that you did not meet the allowable hours to work off campus. As an international student, you are allowed to work up to 20 hours during your scheduled semesters. During a scheduled break, you are allowed to work full-time. However, please note that to be able to work off campus, you need to have a study permit that allows you to work off campus. And lastly, you need to apply within 180 days of receiving written confirmation from the educational institution indicating that you are eligible to obtain a degree, diploma, or a certificate. Please note that this 180-day regulation primarily does not apply to students who want to apply for the postgraduate work permit while remaining in Canada. So when you finish your program on April 17th, if you want to apply for your postgraduate work permit while remaining in Canada, you need to do that within 90 days of April 17th. Reason being, your student status, once the college issues you the proof of graduation, or once you end your classes, which is April 17th, your student status within Canada will expire automatically 90 days after that. To be able to have a valid status within Canada, you need to apply for your postgraduate work permit within those 90 days from April 17th. However, let's say if someone wants to go back home, in that case, you can still apply for the postgraduate work permit from back home within 180 days of April 17th. So how can you transition to full-time work if you have submitted your postgraduate work permit application? Please note that you're only allowed to work full-time once you submit your postgraduate work permit application, and at the time of the application, you meet these four conditions. First, you had a valid study permit when you submitted your application. Second, you completed your study program. Third, you were eligible to work off campus without a work permit while studying. What this means is that on your study permit, under the conditions or remarks, there's a phrase that says may accept employment off campus if meeting eligibility. And lastly, you did not work more hours than you were allowed to. As a, Again, this means as an international student, during scheduled semesters, you are allowed to work 20 hours off campus. During scheduled breaks, you're allowed to work full time. Working off campus, in case you decide to take a second program. If you're taking a second program, you can work full time if you meet the following conditions. Number one, you were already able to work off campus during your previous program. Once again, it means that the study permit that you hold allows you to work off campus and has that condition listed. You have a valid study permit, or you've already applied to extend your study permit before it expired. Please make sure this is very important. If your study permit is expiring in between, you need to apply for an extension before it expires. Third, you have received a final transcript or graduation letter from the school for your first program, and you've also received a letter of acceptance for a new full-time program at a DLI, and your new full-time program at this new DLI, or it can be the same DLI, will start within 150 calendar days of receiving the confirmation that you've completed your first program. If you meet these requirements, then you can work full-time during the transition period between your first program and your second program. Now let's talk about spousal work permit. As I mentioned initially, you as an international student and the principal applicant, you do not need to have a job offer to apply for the postgraduate work permit. However, if your spouse and law partner wants to apply for their extension of a work permit or whatever status they have, in that case, you as a principal applicant under C41 exemption will need to attach proof of job offer in an occupation level skill in a skilled occupation level 0, A or B. You can research the occupation skill levels here on this link. In addition to the job offer, you as a principal applicant and the international student who's applying for the postgraduate work permit, you need to submit copy of 3 payslips with your job offer and the application. Once again, this is only if you have a spouse or a common law partner and they also want to extend their status at the same time as you. Even if you have a spouse or a common law partner, and let's say they don't want to apply for an extension for their status, you can still apply for your graduate work permit without a job offer. However, please make sure that your spouse or common law partner applies for an extension or a change in status before their current status expires. What this means is you can't let your spouse's or common law partner's status in Canada expire at any time. Biometrics. So as of December 3rd, 2019, individuals applying from within Canada to renew or extend their temporary resident status will need to give biometrics as part of their application unless otherwise exempted. The exemption can be that if you've already provided your fingerprints and a photo to a visa office for a Canadian visa or an immigration application within the last 10 years. In case you haven't done that, once you apply, the immigration will send you an email detailing out the process on how to book an appointment to give your fingerprints and photo at the nearest Service Canada office. You can find more information on biometrics via the following links. Medical exam. Some jobs will require you to submit a medical exam. These jobs include workers in health sciences field, clinical lab workers, people who want to work in nursing homes, medical students, teachers of primary or secondary schools, domestics, workers who give in-home care to children, the elderly, and the disabled, day nursery employees, and other similar jobs. You can find more information if you need to give a medical exam via this link. Just to clarify, this medical exam is only needed if you want to work in one of these fields. Otherwise, you do not need to provide a valid copy of your medical exam. This medical exam needs to be completed by a panel physician, by an immigration panel physician, and it needs to be valid. The validity for an immigration medical exam is 12 months. So some of you may have already done this for your co-op job or your co-op work permit application, and it still may be valid. And if it's valid, you can attach that with your application. Otherwise, you will need to complete an immigration medical exam from a panel physician. So let's talk about George Brown reminders. As I mentioned at the start, April 17th is the last day of your classes. You need to apply for your postgraduate work permit 180 days after this. Once again, just to clarify, for students who want to apply for the postgraduate work permit while remaining in Canada, need to apply with 90 days, because as I mentioned, even if your study permit expires, let's say in August, your status in Canada will expire automatically 90 days after this date. In case you want to go back home, then you can still apply within the 180-day period of April 17th. To apply, you will need two key documents. First, proof of graduation, and second, as a final transcript. I will give you the links and tell you the process on how to apply for these two documents. Please note that you can apply for these documents right now if you want. So just to clarify once again, the Records Office will start changing student status to graduated beginning April 29th. After that, if you have requested your proof of graduation and your final transcript, then we will process those on a first come first serve basis. Starting April 17th up until the day on which you receive your proof of graduation or your final transcript, you can work up to 20 hours. Let's say on May 5th, you receive your proof of graduation. That means that day you need to stop working, even up to 20 hours. That means that the college has given you the graduated status and you need to stop working. But please make sure that you do request both these documents. And you need both these documents to apply for the postgraduate work permit. In some cases, you may receive the proof of graduation first and receive the final transcript 2 to 3 days after. That doesn't mean that you can still work. It means that you've still graduated and you cannot work not even 1 hour now until you apply for the postgraduate work permit with both the documents. So how can you request your transcript? You can request your transcript via this link. You will need to create your account. You will need to fill out some details. Please make sure if you request your transcript now, you need to choose postgraduate work permit and choose other as reason right here. And you need to put in the delivery date as April 29th. As I mentioned, April 29th is the day when the Records Office will start changing status for students if they meet the graduation requirements. And you need to have a final transcript. By final transcript, I mean the transcript needs to indicate the date awarded, the name of credential, mostly it will also mention the program name and an award date. So please make sure that you submit your postgraduate work permit application with your final transcript. In the past, we've seen students who just go to StuView after finishing their program and they just apply for a postgraduate work permit with an incomplete transcript and an unofficial transcript. So please make sure that you receive an official transcript which can be ordered through this link. You can join a list of priority graduation letter request only if you have a job offer or you have an expiring study permit and you need the letter and the transcript between April 29th and May 6th. Through the regular process, we will start issuing proof of graduation starting May 7th, May 6th or 7th, ideally. And once again, you need to request it. But in case, let's say if your study permit is expiring on May 4th, or let's say you have a job offer and the employer is requesting you to start on May 3rd. In that case, you can fill out the priority graduation letter request form, attach a copy of your expiring study permit and the job offer, and email both documents or whichever applies to intelsupport@georgebrown.ca. In that case, we will try our best to issue you the documents between April 29th and May 6th. Once again, please note that this is only if you have an expiring study permit or you have a job offer. So the application, things to keep in mind. Please make sure that you make copies of everything. And please make sure that you answer all questions correctly. Sorry. If you want us to review your forms or the application, you can reach out to our team. Please make sure that you take screenshots as proof of submission. You will receive email updates in your MyCIC account. I will show you in one of the slides now how you will create your MyCIC account. So what will you need? You need a valid passport or travel document that guarantees re-entry to the country that issued it. Include copies of the pages with your photo, name, date of birth, citizenship, passport number, issue and expiry date. All entries made by Canadian authorities. And please make sure that you make copy of your temporary resident visa. So basically you need your passport biodata page. If you have a separate page on which you have a signature, you need to include that. You need to include all the Canadian entry stamps and your temporary resident visa page. Also, you need a credit card for online payment. You may also use a debit card. You need a final transcript, and you need the graduation letter from the college. Once again, please make sure that you request both these documents. The college will not automatically do the transcript or the proof of graduation. You need to request it. Also, in certain situations, you will need use of representative form. This is in cases where you may appoint an immigration lawyer or a consultant to conduct business with IRCC on your behalf. So in that case, please make sure that you fill out the use of representative form. In some cases, we've seen that students hire a lawyer to apply for the postgraduate work permit, which is fine, you can do that. But please make sure that the immigration lawyer follows up, because sometimes students think that they've already applied and start working, but the application hasn't been sent through, and eventually it causes problems. Then you may need an authority to release personal information to a designated individual form. In case you're granting authorization for IRCC to share information about your application with someone else, and depending on your situation, you may also need a statutory declaration of common law union or your marriage certificate. So how to apply? You would need to sign in to your IRCC secure account. So once you go on Google, you can just type in MyCIC, and we'll also put in the links at the bottom of this video. So once you click on that link, this will be the landing page. Some of you may already have a GCKey account. This is applicable to cases where you may have already applied for a study permit extension, or you may have applied for a co-op work permit online. In that case, you can use the same credentials to sign in and use the same account to apply for the postgraduate work permit. If you do not have a GCKey account, you will need to create one. And the second option is that you can sign in with a partner. It's usually a bank, and they will ask you certain details, and you can sign in through your bank as well. Processing times. So usually it takes around 3 months. This is a little outdated because we updated the presentation back in March, but I checked today and the processing time for online application right now is 89 days. So it's not much of a difference, but this is just a way to inform students that they can check where their application is. If you just type in check IRCC application processing times, it's gonna bring you to this page and you select temporary residence, visitor, study, working, this tab, and then you choose work permit inside Canada, initial and extension, and it's going to show you the application, the approximate application processing times. Social insurance number. So you need a social insurance number to work in Canada and receive benefits and services from government programs. You as an international student are considered a temporary resident, and your SIN will expire probably on the same date your study permit is expiring. So you can apply to extend your SIN only after you receive a paper copy of your postgraduate work permit. So I'll give you an example. Let's say your SIN and your study permit is expiring on July 31st. But you've already applied for your postgraduate work permit, let's say on May 10th. And now July 31st has passed and your application is still under process. As I mentioned before, under implied status, you can continue to work until IRCC makes a decision on your postgraduate work permit application. And under implied status, you can use the same expired SIN number to continue working. Sometimes your employer may ask you to provide proof of implied status in order to continue working while awaiting for your postgraduate work permit on an expired SIN. So there are like two ways to tackle this. One is you can reach out to us, and the college in some cases can just email you a document detailing out the immigration regulation that allows temporary residents to continue within the same conditions under implied status. Or what you can do is you can go to a nearest Service Canada and get a document from them. Now, this document is not your new social insurance number. It's just again a similar immigration regulation that you usually keep, and you can show that to your employer. Once you receive your postgraduate work permit and you and it comes in mail, then you can take the original valid postgraduate work permit along with your current social insurance number and your original passport to a nearest Service Canada office, Service Canada, and they will extend your SIN number and update the expiry date in line with the expiry date of your postgraduate work permit. Lastly, please note that you will not be issued a new SIN number. You will keep the same SIN number, just the expiry date will be updated. In some situations, we may advise you to contact IRCC, and sometimes you may have to do it on your own as well. So this is the contact information for IRCC. Usually we encourage students to call them early in the morning, which is around 8 a.m. That's when the call center is open because there's less wait time. in case you're wondering how can you reach out to IRCC, or if there's something going on with your case, then you can always reach out to them through this number. All right, so these two beautiful faces on the screen, one is Michelle, one is Carissa. So as I mentioned before and promised, this is the portfolio that they manage. So Michelle is in charge for students who study in School of Hospitality and Culinary Arts, Preparatory and Liberal Studies, Construction and Engineering Technologies, Arts, Design and Information Technology. So this is her contact information. If you're a student in one of these programs, you can contact Michelle. And the second international student advisor is Carissa. She is in charge of the business school, the School of Community Services and Health Sciences, Early Childhood Education, and the School of ESL. And this is her contact information. So before I end, these are some useful links that you can visit. So if you have any questions, if you want to seek information from the IRCC website, you can visit these links. And as I mentioned before, you can reach out to our team at the International Center. Given the COVID-19 situation, we are all working remotely right now, but we do hope to come back to campus at some point. And this is pretty much the end of the presentation for now. I wish you all the best in your postgraduate work permit application, and me and my team hope that you're all doing well in this current situation. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much and take care.